All right, I've got this 5.3 out of a 2003 Tahoe, and I'm going to put it into a 2001, or sorry, 2000 Chevrolet Silverado 1500. And this is a junkyard motor, so, hey, number one operating procedure is to replace this rear main seal. If you've got one of these motors out, please do that. Now, if you want to spend a little extra money, a little extra time, replace this little plastic bastard right here with one of those aftermarket aluminum ones that has a tighter fit. Theory is that it lets by just a tiny little bit of oil, and it's a good idea to go ahead and replace it. Now, this is an O-ring style gasket, and I've got a Felpro BS 40640, and I'm just full of BS right now. But it's an O-ring style gasket, so I have my gasket surface is lubricated. My gasket bracket here, or whatever you want to call this thing, I've got it cleaned up pretty good. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this rear main seal in here. And I had to beat the tar out of that seal to get it out. Here it is right here. Man, I tell you what, it was tricky. But once it started moving, it popped right out. But I don't know why, but I beat the crap out of it to get it out. So anyway, whatever. We just throw that stuff on the ground around here. Now this type of gasket, this type of rear main seal is just a one-piece rear main seal. It's not a two-piece style. Some of the two-piece style have a hardened shell that drives onto the rear crankshaft, okay? This one doesn't. It's soft, no big deal. You don't need a special $250 tool. So, got it all greased up. This gasket surface area, this is the pan gasket. I'm going to put a thin layer of silicone across here. Okay, everywhere else is going to get lubricant. Now, what I've used in this particular case is just some Transgel assembly goo. You can use silicone, you can use, for me, I don't like to use grease, but Transgel works great. Grease attacks rubber. Of course, this is going in a motor, and the oil is going to attack the rubber anyway, so hey, what do you do? Anyway, so that's what's going on with this situation here. This is just a junkyard motor, and I'm going to put that rear main seal in there and get it to the next step, and I'll take you along. Okay, so this is a seal. I took it out of the fancy little baggie that it was in. All right, and when you look at this seal, I can tell. Now, you may not be able to tell, but I can tell that this is the inside, okay? All right, now it's difficult to tell. It's got this little plastic doodad on there, but this side here, this is the inside right here on the right, touching that right there. It will go into there like so, okay? It's got a couple of paint marks. I don't know if they're all like that, but it's just a rubber clad seal, and it will drive in there flush, okay? Now, it does have a back, okay. Well, we're not worried about that too much. I'll put that back in there before I hit it. Now, the reason why you want this in there is because some of these seals, they have a bit of tension on it, and you want that tension to stay on it for as long as possible. Well, I won't be able to put it back in there with one hand, will I? But let me get this back in there and move along. All right, so I know this is freaking hilarious. Okay, I'm out here in the middle of the night beating on things, and my neighbors are probably not happy about it. But, this particular type of seal, I've been looking at it, and when I had this little plastic doodad piece out of it, I didn't see a spring in there, okay? But the idea behind this is to keep the seal in position, okay? So you're going to put it on there, and it's not a deal breaker if it falls out. It's just that it relaxes, okay? This seal will relax and start to come out as soon as you take this off. Okay, so you want it to be on as long as possible, okay? Right before you put it on this crankshaft here, you want to pop that little guy out, and you can actually get that housing with the with this filler thing on there and pop it on there all at the same time and just let the filler pop off, okay? And maybe I'll do that. I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but you don't want to mess around. As soon as you take this off, you're going to want to install it. Now, I'm not going to use a special tool to install this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this off and install it on there and let it center itself, okay? Now, if I go to put this on there and there's too much tension from the bottom and it presses on the bottom of this and leaves a gap on the top, then that's going to be a problem. I'm going to have to loosen up the oil pan. I don't think that's the case, but that could be a situation that if you put this on and the way that it's centered on there has something to do with where the oil pan is, and the original AC Delco seal has a little bit more ridge area and it takes up a little bit more gap, so it doesn't matter. I don't know, but I'm going to look at that here in just a minute. Okay, so I've got that seal installed, and I use this punch here to kind of help things along. Okay, and when you look at the back of this, you can see that it's all the way flush, okay? And you want to check all the way around and make sure that it's setting in there flush. All right, and I've got it lubed up. If you don't have any assembly goob, just use some motor oil or whatever you got. Slap that stuff on there because it has an O-ring style gasket on there, okay? O-ring style gasket requires some type of lubricant. Okay, it requires some type of lubricant because it's floating. All right, it doesn't take much. I'm gonna wipe that down a little bit. Got a little too much on there, and that's fine. It's not that big of a deal, but I'm just making sure there's no dust or debris on there. So, this point here, I'm gonna put my silicone all the way across here, okay? Silicone that situation. It does have a rubber gasket there that's designed to do the job, but this is probably really old, so I don't expect that to do its job the way I want it to be. I want it to be perfectly leak free, so I'm going to get some silicone and handle the situation. So hold on. Okay, so I've got that silicone on here, and you don't want to put too much silicone, okay? You just need a thin layer, and I've already manipulated that silicone, okay? Now, when we're talking among our union brothers here, we say that we are tooling, okay? We've tooled this silicone and we've worked it, okay? You want to work it so that it has a wet edge, all right? If you just stick it on there without working it, okay, it's going to have an edge that stands up, and you want it to lay down before you put it together, okay? So I don't know if that matters to many folks, but that's how we talk when we're building high-rise buildings and we're tooling silicone. I used to be an iron worker, and that's how we talk. But anyway, let me get this cover going here. All right, so I've got it in position, but I don't think I'll be able to do this with one hand. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to start that bottom end like this and pop it in and let that, like so, and let that filler piece, that plastic piece, fall out as I go. Now what this filler piece is going to do its job all the way to the end. Now some folks might say it's not that important, and that's fine. You can pop this little guy out, throw it on the ground, that's fine. Try not to drop it like I'm dropping it because I'm talking too much. So let me get this thing put on there without dropping it on the ground. I've got all my bolts clean. The bolt torque is like, like 120 inch-pounds or something. It doesn't get much. Okay, so it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Okay, this little plastic filler piece did its job. All right, now I tried to put it on, it fell out, and I was like, oh, I'll just stick it on. Well, it wasn't working worth a shit. So yes, this little guy here works really good. Keep it on for as long as possible. Okay, and of course, you know, you need to put the gasket on. Make sure you put the gasket on before you do that. Okay. All right. Okay, so we've got this, all the bolts are in, and you know, and we're kind of curious on what type of situation we've got. All right, so we've got 8.6. Nah, man, difficult. I'm not left-handed, so let me swap this around. Okay, so we've got 8.7, 8.6, so it's a very small amount off there. Let's look here. This is the part that matters, okay? 8.6. 8.3. So it's off just a tiny bit, just a few thousandths. Okay, so when I tighten these up down here, okay, that will level out the game. Let's see how that goes. All right, so on the top, .4. Let's measure the bottom. 8.5, so it's off by 1,000.